This is anatomy lesson 6.05 over cervical vertebra. And in this lesson, we're going to be talking about some of the characteristics of vertebra in general, and then what makes cervical vertebra different from both thoracic and lumbar vertebra. So we start off, this is, we label the vertebra, and we had said in terms of remembering how many there are 7 cervical vertebrae. You eat breakfast at 7 o'clock. And we number them C1, C2, C3, C4. So this is C1 and this is C2. C2 has most of the characteristics that are common. And then C1 is different because it's doing a different job than the rest of the cervical vertebra. So let's start with C2. And what we need to know for all of these, this is anterior and this is posterior. So this is anterior and this is posterior. And every vertebra has specific features. So all of the vertebra have a process that comes off of the sides to the left and the right, and these are called transverse processes. So this is a transverse process. Transverse process. To the back, we have, so here we have barely any, and here we have a very small one. This is called a spinous process. And the spinous process of cervical vertebra look very different from other spinous processes. We have on the top and the bottom, you can't see them very clearly, but these are facets. So it's spelled F-A-C-E-T, but it's pronounced facet. And we have them both on the top and the bottom. So this is, let me colors. Let's do all the processes. Did I get all of my processes? The transverse, I've got my spinous, I believe so. So let's do the facets in blue. Now, there are facets that are above and there are facets that are below. So this is a superior because it's above. And this is going to articulate with the either vertebra that sits above it, or in this case with C1, the skull. So this is going to articulate with the occipital condyles, but this is a superior articular or articulating, A-R-T-I-C-U-L, 1 L. A-R, facet. So down here would be inferior articular facet. And I'm just going to write SAF for the rest of them so I don't have to label them out. So SAF, SAF, SAF. Another feature that all of the vertebrae are going to have is a vertebral foramen. So this opening in the middle here and here is a vertebral foramen, and every vertebra has that. So we're labeling out things right now that every vertebra has. Some things we're going to see are specific to just the cervical. But the vertebral foramen is where the spinal cord passes through. So this, by stacking one atop the other, they create this protective column for our spinal cord. So what's missing? Some of the, like C3 through C7 have a small, let's see, what color do I want to use? Let's go with orange. So let's talk about what's missing. And that's the body. So when we get down into our lumbar vertebra, they have this huge round portion of bone that we call the body of the vertebra that allows us to support weight. But we're not supporting a lot of weight here, so we have minimal weight support. So we can get away with that, minimal weight support. So what's unique about cervical vertebra? So only in cervical vertebra, they have a forked spinous process. Forked spinous process. You'll notice that C1 barely has any spinous process. In C2, it's forked. Their transverse processes have foramens. So I have a foramen here and here. I have a foramen here and here. I'm going to write this in black because, well, let's just label it. So we have a transverse foramen. I'll put TF, TF, TF. So you can always tell. One of the things you'll have to do for the test is to pick up a vertebra and tell me, is it transverse, is it thoracic, or is it lumbar? And you can tell cervical right away. One, they have foramen in their transverse processes. Two, they have forked spinous processes. Three, they're missing the bodies. Now, let's say a little bit about these two. So C1 and C2 actually have their own name, and C2 has this weird structure that we only find on C2. So C1 is holding up the weight of the head. And if you remember the myth of Atlas, he had to hold up the weight of the world. So we call C1 the Atlas vertebra. This feature inserts up through the vertebral foramen of C1, and it creates, I don't know how to do it with the camera here. It creates a pivot point. And so it allows the C1 to pivot. This is the process that sticks up, and my hand is a C1. It allows this to pivot side to side. This process is called the Odontoid process. The Odontoid process. And because we pivot around the Odontoid process, this is called the axis vertebra. So no other vertebra has this because no other vertebra is providing a pivot point from side to side. And no other vertebra looks quite like C1, where we have absolutely no body. This is a little bit of a body right here. So we have a semblance of a body, but we should say missing most of the body, or little, because some of them have small bodies, missing or little. So in C1, it's missing entirely. In C2, we have a little bit of a body. But when we go through when we go through thoracic and lumbar, I'll label SAF, I'll label vertebral foramen. So I'm going to use some of these again. So inferior articulate facet, we'll do IAF. But we'll see that the thoracic, because they have a different job, and then the lumbar have a different job, we'll see that there's differences between the groups. So, okay, what are our takeaways? Cervical vertebra, there's 7 of them. The first one is the atlas. The second is the axis. The axis has the odontoid process. All of our vertebra have vertebral foramen, transverse processes, and spinous processes. But in cervical, the spinous process is forked. The transverse processes have transverse foramen. So that's how we can always tell a cervical from thoracic or lumbar. All right, that's all about cervical. Thanks for watching.